What's up, guys? Corey here. I'm going to walk you through what I look for when I'm analyzing a race. This is specifically somebody's Atlanta Hyrox race, the one that just happened here in the fall. So if you race that race and you want to follow along and figure out what I would look at if I was coaching you, do that here. So the first thing I do is I take the athlete's stats and I put them into this fancy chart I made. So let me go over what those numbers are because it's cutting off the left side of the screen where I have them labeled. So those are run 1, ski erg, run 2, sled push, run 3, sled pull, run 4, burpee broad jump, run 5, row, run 6, farmer's carry, run 7, lunge, run 8, wall ball. Wall ball's 440 if you're following along, and then rock zone 616, rock zone and run 4431, fancy run pace 507, run consistency score 36, and then total time 116.45. So let me explain those weird numbers at the bottom. If you don't know what I mean by run 1 and ski erg, then this is not the video for you. This is all over your head. You should ignore everything here. So rock zone and run is a metric I really like. So that's the 4431 right there, because from venue to venue, from race to race, the guarantee from Hyrox is not that each run will be in 1,000 meters exactly. The guarantee from Hyrox is that when you take all 8 runs and the rock zone, you're going to have 8.7 kilometers total. So what that means to me is that the useful metric to look at isn't total run time or average pace for your 8 runs. The useful metric to me is what was your total time to complete that 8.7 kilometers, because now we're protected, if that's the stat we're looking at, from, oh, it was a big rock zone with shorter runs, or, oh, it was a small rock zone with longer runs. Now we're protected from that. So in this scenario, we now know, oh, this athlete, that I work with took 44 minutes and 31 seconds to travel that 8.7 kilometers. And that's a metric that we can use from race to race to really compare, which is useful because if you're really taking this seriously, you want to compare, you want to try to eliminate as many variables as possible. And there's always, travel, I got a bad sled lane. Oh, this farmer's carry had more turns. There's always stuff like that. So the more stuff we can do to get consistent data from people, the better. And so that rock zone plus run time is a more consistent data point for you to use to look at your performance. And then from that is my fancy run pace. So I add up the rock zone and run to get 44 minutes and 31 seconds, divide that by 8.7, the 0.7 kilometers that she ran, to get 507. So 507 is the true pace that I believe this athlete ran, including the rock zone, including the short first run, including the long last run, including that every run was kind of short and then the rock zone was massive. 507 is like a true pace. And I think this is a much more reliable way to evaluate and train and plan for the future, because that's the real pace that was run. So that's what I mean. That's why I use rock zone and run as a total time. And that's why I use fancy run pace. And if anybody has a better name for that, let me know. I'll steal it from you and give you credit one time and then never again. Run consistency score is something that I look at for on runs 2 through 7. And I say runs 2 through 7 because frequently run 1 is weird, like long or short, and frequently run 8 is weird, long or short, and also they time it differently. How consistent were those runs? So that run consistency score is based off of, okay, what was the average time for runs 2 through 7? Because I said time, not pace, because I don't think that they're ever exactly 1,000 meters. So it's not that run 2, which was a 446, was a 446 pace. I don't know what the pace was. I just know that she averaged a 507 overall, in my opinion. The 446 pace for runs 2 through 7, the average for that was 450. So she was 4 seconds faster on run 2. She was 4 seconds faster on run 3. She was 5 seconds faster on run 4. And then on run 5, she was 5 seconds slow. On run 6, she was 3 seconds slow. And then on run 7, 15 seconds slow. So you can see I have those numbers parenthetically next to those times so that I can see, oh, where did we have deviations? Because the big thing I'm looking for in those runs is, are they consistent? And so I add up all those numbers. I treat them as positive integers only, so that a -5 and a +5 don't give me a score of 0 on my run consistency score. 36 is not bad. That's a pretty consistent bout of running. That's an average of being 6 seconds off. 36 divided by 6 is 6. That's an average of being 6 seconds off. That's not bad. That's pretty consistent running. I've certainly seen a lot worse. That metric by itself isn't that meaningful to me, but it is meaningful. But for example, if she had run 7-minute 1Ks and been dead on every time, I wouldn't have been pumped about like, wow, your runs were so consistent, because they would be so slow for this athlete. But I do want to know, hey, were they generally consistent, because that's a better strategy, and where were they inconsistent if they weren't. So I think that's a useful thing to look at. So that's my data pooling there, and that's how I calculate those numbers if you want to do that. So then I move on. So we have our data in a way that we can actually do something with it. So looking at this, I don't really look at run 1, and I don't really look at run 8 unless I was like at the venue and saw. And so this one, run 8, was pretty similar to the other runs. You came in at the same spot. It's just going to be a little bit long because the timing strip doesn't stop when you go into the rock zone. It stops when you get to the wall balls, on the wall balls. So it's consistent from venue to venue like that. So that was a very consistent run. So the runs were consistent, and that fancy run pace of 5:07 is really good for this athlete. A fantastic improvement from her last race. In her last race, she had a fancy run pace of 5:50. So in just a few months, drastically improved. And part of that was training, but a lot of that was just experience. She knew how to do this better this time through. So really, really happy with the runs, really happy with that. Runs were pretty consistent. We might look at this and say, hey, what happened post farmer's carry? Why was that slower? Is that something we need to work on? I would interview the athlete with this, and I would ask, like, hey, athlete, I don't want to name them. Hey, athlete, did your calves lock up on the farmer's carry? You posted a good farmer's carry time. 143 is a good time. Were your calves like locking up? Cool. Let's make sure that we add some extra like calf work to your program, or some more like compromised running specifically post farmer's carry, because it looks like, you can handle it when your quads and glutes are burning, because your last run after the lunge looked really good and your run after the sled push looked really good, but maybe your calves locking up is like an issue for you. So I would ask that question. But aside from that, those runs were great, and I wouldn't really look at anything else for this athlete outside of talking to her about the farmer's carry and how her legs felt, and seeing if that's something we can address going into that final push of the race. And then I would go through event by event and look at if there's any weird spikes. Really, the only weird spike in the run, once again, was after the farmer's carry. So now we just look at straight up performance on the events and start judging that. And the events were great. You don't run a 1:16:45 solo with bad events. She did really well here. So that is where I know like historical data pretty well in terms of like what is good for a woman in a solo race. But if you don't know that, you can pop into a website, one that I like a lot. This is not sponsored content. I like a website called Hyresult, HYRESULT.com, because that'll give you your race results as well as like where you rank on that. So that 5:03 ski is good. It's in percentile. It's not amazing, but that's not because it's not a good time. It's because people are dumb and they come out too fast. So those get skewed. So if you scroll down and look at her row is a 5:04, and now that jumps her up to like the top 30% there. 28.6% is where that ranks in terms of like all people racing. So it's the same time essentially, but it goes from bottom half to top 30%. So yeah, it's actually great. The sled push 241, I think we can improve that some. That's right around the 50th percentile, but still same thing here. A lot of people come in too fast on that sled and then die. And so you see this athlete did that sled pretty well, still, top half, and then afterwards ran great. The sled pull, phenomenal. 4:30 on the sled pull is so good. Don't do anything there. And then ran well afterwards too. So like, brava. That's great stuff. Burpee broad jumps, phenomenal. 4 minutes is so good. And then gets out of there, gets on a run, is only a little bit slow, 5 seconds off the average for runs 2 through 7 after that. And then gets to the row and posts a great time on the row. 5:04 is a solid row. Got on there and probably cruised at like a 2:20 pace and caught her breath, and then still banged out another great run afterwards, 4:48 run. Really happy with that. And then we get to, the back half of the race, phenomenal. The farmer's carry, super fast. The lunges are really solid. The wall balls, pretty solid. So I would say, looking at this athlete, the only thing I would look at is maybe some like real strength work, because the worst events statistically on here were the sled push, the lunges, and the wall balls. So I would hammer some extra strength work with this athlete and try to get those numbers up. But overall, this was a podium finish for this athlete. This was their second solo race. They are really, really solid. I'm really pumped about this performance. I think this is really good. But that, my friends, and enemies, whoever's watching this. That is what I would look at when I'm evaluating a race. That is how I would judge somebody, and those are the types of decisions I would make coaching going forward. I hope this was helpful for you. If you would like help with your training, send me an email, Corey@CorblinTraining.com, and we will help you get ready for your next Hyrox race. But even if you don't, you now have this video, and you can watch it, and you can study, and you can make decisions like I would, or even better, because you know yourself better than I know this athlete. Hope this helps. Y'all have a great day. Bye.